Hello and welcome to episode number 309. This is the Project Management Podcast at pm-podcast.com, and I'm Cornelius Fichtner. Susanne Madsen is back on the show today to talk about many of the leadership concepts that she puts forward in her new book titled The Power of Project Leadership. And we have a lot of great tips for you taken all from the book. If you are a PMP or PGMP and you're looking for a simple and effective way to earn your PDUs, then our sister podcast, the PDU Podcast, is your answer. Get a new webinar and at least one new PDU every month on autopilot. Stop by at pducast.com. That's pducast.com. Here is a quote about Susanne's book. Managing projects is exciting and fun. But there comes a moment in every project manager's career when you realize that there must be more than just bringing tasks to completion. This is the moment when you realize that you want to go from project manager to project leader, which is when you have to pick up the power of project leadership. Susanne Madsen's book is an in-depth roadmap that shows you exactly how to reinvent yourself and go from managing your projects at the task level to leading them through vision and empowerment. And so in our interview, you can look forward to hearing Susanne recommend what she would like you to do differently in regards to leadership, how you can transform your leadership style, discover 3 of the 7 keys to project leadership from the book, and as always, we close the interview with a number of tips for you to implement right away. Also, we are giving away 2 copies of the book on our Facebook page at facebook.com/pmpodcast. I'll give you all the details in the closing remarks after the interview is over. And now, let's turn the power on. Enjoy the interview.
The Project Management Podcasts feature interview.
Today with Susanne Madsen, project leadership coach, author, and speaker.
Hello, Susanne. Welcome back to the podcast.
Hello, Cornelius. Thank you for having me. It's an honor as always.
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it?
I can't remember.
Neither can I. Oh. So we want to talk about your new book, or what's in your new book, The Power of Project Leadership. Before we open it up, what's your personal interest in project leadership? Because that has been your focus. Your previous book was about leadership as well.
Yes, it is. It is a focus of mine. I suppose it comes from my own journey. Back in the days, I was making all the classic mistakes that I see project managers make today, the project managers I coach. I felt I had to know it all myself. I felt I had to do it all. I felt that, I was very task-oriented, not really that focused on how I could motivate people. And it actually led to burnout, also this idea that, I have no one to delegate to. So you really feel that you need to be this hero. For me, I went through a transformation where I went on a leadership course, I had coaching, and I had this big aha moment, and I realized that actually there was another way. And since then, I've really gone into it to help others go through that journey, not just so that they avoid making the mistakes that I did, but also so that we can deliver better projects. There is growing evidence out there that the most important skill for project managers is leadership. It's not actually technical skills. We need the technical skills, but that's not the end all or be all. So that's a little bit about why I'm so driven to actually help others make that transition.
And why write this book in particular, The Power of Project Leadership?
Well, the short answer is that I was asked to write it by the publisher, and I got so flattered,
That's always good.
But just for people listening in, we think that, it's so great to write a book and even be asked to do it. And I got an advance this time, which was nice. But we don't actually make tons of money on books unless you write one of these famous bestsellers. So it's a little bit of I fell for it anyway, and I thought, yes, I must write it. It fits in with my purpose. So it's a book that's been very important for me to write, but I didn't actually initiate this one.
Okay, and for those of you interested, you can go to powerofprojectleadership.com. That's powerofprojectleadership.com to learn more about the book. What would you like the reader to do differently as a result of having read the book? Because you say also the book is about transformation.
Yeah. I suppose we write things because we want people to read it and learn, but there is so much more in it. Because if you just get new knowledge, you're not going to change on the back of new knowledge. You actually need action. So my aim is very much to move people to start acting differently, and that a whole number of levels in which they can do that. Just to name a few, I mean, I would really love people to start thinking of themselves as role models, as leadership role models, because we do need those out there in the marketplace. So what does that mean? Well, if someone starts thinking of themselves as a role model, someone who everybody else is going to follow, I think it means that we're going to sit up more straight and take notice of what we do. We are more inclined then to lead with integrity, to do what is right, to add value to our clients, to, I suppose, in the way we influence other people. I think we're more likely to take notice. And in that whole adding value becomes connecting more with our customers, understanding how we can add strategic value to the company. So there's a whole raft of concepts I would like, or things I would like people to do differently. But thinking of ourselves as role models, I think is a really good start.
And in which way does the book help project managers to actually transform instead of just showing them what good project leadership looks like?
Yeah, because that's right. So there's obviously a lot of text in there, exactly as you're saying, what is project leadership? But I have throughout the book lots of other ingredients, if you like. There are lots of exercises, lots of insightful questions. I also have 25 interviews with leadership experts in there, project leadership experts from around the world, from different industries. Some people are, like me, coaches. Some people are out there in the world delivering projects every single day. So I've tried to mix it up, and I've had their voice. I've included their stories with their voice, so that it's not just me speaking in the book. There's different styles of writing, and I hope that's going to inspire people to do things differently. And of course, I have big parts of the book that are about people's mindset, for instance. So what is it that drives someone to want to transform? And so, for instance, if you get in the game, you want, yes, I want to be a project leader, but once you get there, it's not what you expected. If you're not in this for the right reasons, then your transformation is not going to sustain. So I have lots of, I suppose, elements in the book about the mindset, having the right mindset to transform and to become a leader. So it's not just theory about project leadership.
You say that part 2 is all about understanding the individual reader's motivators for wanting to become a leader. I read that about the book. Could you give us some of the motivators, examples of these motivators for our listeners to better understand?
Yeah, so if you sit down and try and look at your own vision and mission statement, which is something I have spoken about before and written about, it's really trying to envision, well, where would you like to be in 3 years or in 5 years from now? What is it that drives you? Are you driven by growth? Do you want to continuously learn and develop? Are you driven by connection? That means, do you want to actually create a community with others? Do you want to help others grow? Are you in this to create that personal connection in a team, for instance? Are you in this for something that we call significance? That means, do you want a little bit of an ego boost out of this? Would you like to earn more money from it? Would you like to say, oh, I have a nice title, I'm a program director, whatever it is? So there are different types of motivators, different types of needs that motivate someone. Another example could be contribution. Someone might want to transform and become a leader because they want to add to a bigger purpose out there. They want to contribute. So it's very important that each individual understands what does this look like for me? What is it actually that drives me? And will becoming a project leader satisfy my needs? Because, I don't know if you know anyone, when they were students, they wanted to become a doctor. So they studied becoming a doctor and they got out there in the world and it turned out that, oh my God, is this what it is to become a doctor? That's not what I wanted at all. So sometimes we run towards achieving something, and once we're there, we realize it doesn't fulfill me. So I'm helping people make that connection before they get there. What is it that I'm going to get from this at all? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Let me ask you a challenging question here, though. What do you say to somebody who says, you know what, I'm fed up with this. Everybody's always talking about needing to change from a project manager over to a project leader. I don't want to change. I don't want to transform. What do you say to someone like that?
I think it is a challenging question. And I see it in different guises. I also have people say, well, I don't want to learn about the business. That's not my job. I hear people say, I don't want to understand the strategy because that's what the sponsor does. And when I blog, I hear people who disagree with me all the time. And I do find sometimes it's hard to argue. If people have a view that they just want to stay like a task-oriented project manager, it's their choice. But they have to realize then that they're not adding as much value as they could do. They have to realize that they're not getting the best out of their teams. They're not collaborating in the best ways. They have to realize that they may be delivering a project which doesn't give the user what the user needs because they may have been just too focused on ticking boxes and producing something that was in the specification. So I suppose it's each person's choice, but there is a level difference here because if people just want to tick boxes and just be the task-oriented project manager, they are not going to add ultimate value. They're not going to get ultimate success in their jobs. And that's the choice they have to make.
And at what time in a project manager's career should this transformation start? I mean, this is definitely not something that you do on day 1 or 2 as you're getting into project management. What's your recommendation here? How many years of project management experience should be about right before you should start thinking about transforming into project leadership?
Yeah, for people who come from a technical background, I think you're right. You start off with understanding the tools and the techniques and the processes, and most companies will train you in that. So that's naturally where you start off. That's not necessarily true for everyone. There are some people out there who come from the business and they are more business savvy, so they would be more aware of the business case, and they definitely start from the other side. They may not have the tools and the techniques. I really think it depends on people's journey. For most people, yes, they start with the tools and the techniques. So at the time when they begin to realize that they don't have what it takes to persuade the stakeholders, to build the good relationships with the stakeholders, when they start to realize that the team is not very motivated and they start looking up from their task and thinking, actually, there is more to this, hopefully that transformation will come naturally to them. I don't think you can set a number of years on it. I would like to hope that in the future, in the very near future, we will begin to train our project managers from day one in emotional intelligence, as well as the processes, and also in the business value, because that's really what is required to do the job. It doesn't have to be staggered with just the processes first, but that's the way we do it today.
Okay, so let's open up your book and jump into it. In particular, we want to focus on some of the keys to project leadership that you have in there. There are 7 keys to project leadership in your book. They are: be authentic, lead with vision, improve and innovate, empower the team, get close to your stakeholders, establish a solid foundation, and also work with intent. You have picked 3 of these keys that we want to discuss a little bit more in detail. And we start out with key number 2, which is lead with vision. Here, lead with vision, you talk about how project managers need to take joint ownership of the project's business case, and that they can do that in part by measuring the project's strategic as well as tactical measures of success. Can you elaborate a little bit on this? What's the difference here between strategic and tactical measures, and how does that help me lead with a vision?
Yeah, so it goes back to a little bit of what we talked about before. If a project manager is only focused on the tactical aspects, and the way I define tactical is time, cost, quality. So it's a good old-fashioned, it's our iron triangle. If project manager only focused on that, then they may be missing the bigger picture on the value creation. So this goes back to what we're being trained in. We get a specification, we deliver it on time and to cost. So that's all well and good. Sometimes we struggle with those fundamentals, but just imagine you have a perfect specification. You even get it in on time and to cost. Perfect. Your customer's happy. Well, maybe they aren't. Just because you deliver this perfect device that operates perfectly, it doesn't actually mean that it serves a need. It doesn't mean that it gives them what they really need. It doesn't mean that that it operates well for them in 3, 5, or 10 years' time. And that's where the disconnect can be between the strategic layer and the operational layer. So to answer your question, the tactical success criteria are time, cost, quality. But to be successful And to lead with vision, we need to focus on the strategic measures. And let me tell you what they are. They're measures around what is the effect of this output, whatever your project is producing. What's the effect of that on your company's strategic drivers? And that depends on what your company's strategic drivers are. It could be that you want to improve your reputation in the marketplace. That's a strategic driver. It could be that you want to win over a certain or increase your market share in a certain area. It could be that you want to beat your competitors. It could be that you want to increase your revenues. Whatever that is, does your project help your company to achieve those strategic objectives? The PMI's Pulse report actually mentions that one of the biggest reasons for project failure is that there is a disconnect between the project's outputs and the strategic drivers. And that's often because the sponsor isn't actually showing up on the project. So that's one of the reasons why it's so important to look at the strategic success factors. There are some further strategic success factors. One of them is relevance. What is the relevance of this product or output on the end users? Is it relevant at all? Are they going to use it? Does it add benefit? And sustainability is another important element. So the strategic factors help us measure value. It helps us measure the business case. And the reason why that's important for leading with vision is that if you as a leader want to take your team from where we are today, the status quo, to somewhere altogether more a brighter future, then you've got to be able to persuade that team, to inspire them to follow you. And you can only do that if you understand that bigger picture, if you understand how what you're doing today, how that's going to add value to your clients, to the company, to the end users, etc. It's also going to help you make better decisions. If we are this project manager who only operates, time, cost, quality, don't care about the bigger picture, how can you make good decisions? How can you inspire your team? So there's a number of reasons why we must take both of these sets of factors into consideration.
Okay, that was the key number 2, lead with vision. The next one you selected is key number 3, improving and innovating. Why do project managers have to continuously improve and innovate? And of course, how can they best do that?
Yeah, it's a key that is close to my heart. I did a lot of research when I wrote the book, particularly on this key, because I don't think innovation is what we normally associate with project managers, would you say?
Well, that depends, frankly. Are we talking about innovation of ourselves, or are we talking about innovation through leading our project?
Yeah, I see it in 2 levels, really. I see innovating the product we're developing, but also the ways in which we're doing it. So the processes also.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, I haven't seen that. It depends on the industry, of course. At the moment, we're building something called Crossrail in London. So we're building a completely new underground line from east to west. And it's a massive project. And actually, I've been reading up on how innovative that project really is. So they've set up an innovation team, will you believe it? An innovation team that goes from site to site, because all of this, they're construction workers and engineers down in the tunnels and building stations. And this team goes around all these different groups and asks them, what are you struggling with? And they try to make the link between what learning other groups have made, other parts of the team. And they also have this ethos of pinched with pride. They have different subcontractors working for them. And if someone steals an idea from another subcontractor, pinch it back with pride, and add to it. So, of course, there are exceptions. There are projects out there that are very innovative, but it's not what I have experienced very much. So I added it into the book because the world is not standing still. There is new developments all the time. There's new technologies all the time. The world is getting smaller, really. And leadership is, at the end of the day, it is about doing things better. It is about adding value. I know I'm using that word a lot, adding value, but that's the raison d'être. That's why we're leaders. We want to do the right thing and we want to make a difference. We want to lead people towards a new place, really. And that's why we must get away from the status quo at all levels, from a product level, as we said, and also from a process level. So I think that's why it's important. And there are a number of ways we can do that, or project managers can do that. First of all, it's about a mindset shift to say that, well, I do want our team to innovate. We want to improve and be conscious about it. And one of the best ways to do that is to ask questions, to allow your team to collaborate with you on what can we do better? What have we not yet thought of? Or what would you do if you were the boss? Or, what if questions are great? So what if we could build a product that meets the needs that our clients haven't even verbalized yet? Or what if we could be the best team in the industry? Or what if we could win the prize of something? Or what if we could deliver this faster and cheaper? So it's really about empowering with questions, and it's also about creating a safe space for the team members to want to come forth with their ideas. Oftentimes we say, yeah, I want your ideas, let's brainstorm. And then we shoot ideas down. But what happens in the brain when we do that is people go straight back to their reptilian brain when someone is criticizing them, and then they're not being creative anymore. So we've got to create a safe space where we ask questions and really listen to what comes back. And there are many other ways in which we can innovate and improve by rotating people inside the organizations, by making sure that we get knowledge from outside. I was with a company yesterday and I asked them, what's the biggest prohibitor for project success in your company? And as a group, they came up and they said, actually, it's the biggest problem we have is the silos inside our company. No one is reaching out to help other groups. And we can't learn from each other either with that mentality. So they were talking about the importance of what actually happens when we start rotating people. Instead of holding onto our project managers and our team members, we let them circulate. That's another way of improving and innovating, because we learn from each other, especially in a big company with big silos. There's a lot of learning to be had.
Would you agree that on a project level, agile project management, agile approaches are more focused on the idea of improving and innovating? Because every, 2 to 4 weeks in agile, you're supposed to have a retrospective and talk about what went right and what went wrong and how could we improve the things that haven't gone so well and strengthen the things that have gone really well.
Yeah, some of the best things about agile is the collaborative element and the fact that we iterate through something and we change or we adapt as we go along to suit the needs, and we work on anyway, I don't need to repeat what agile is, but yes, I think the fact that there are built-in retrospectives or you don't just review backwards, you review forwards as well, don't you? That is very powerful, but I've also seen misunderstood agile where people absolutely have to follow, the agile process. And they forget that, well, is the agile process working for us or not? Maybe we need to adapt it instead of just we have to do stand-ups in this way or we have to do backlogs in a certain way. So yes and no, I think agile is definitely a fantastic contribution, but we also must make sure that agile doesn't become the status quo.
Okay, so much for key number 3, which was improving and innovating. You mentioned earlier on that you need to empower with questions, and that takes us straight into key number 4, where we want to empower the team. Here you write about the yin and the yang of project leadership, and you also have a nice matrix that illustrates where project leadership is positioned. Can you explain this a little bit more in detail for us, please?
Yes. So I spent many pages in the book, or a lot of ink, describing how as project leaders, we must support the team. Because if we want the best out of a team, we really must be good at listening, not just coming up with the answers ourselves. As we said, empower with questions, trust. There's a whole array of things. We must find out what makes each person tick. We must understand what each person's strengths are so we can utilize those strengths. We must have one-on-one meetings so we really understand how we can better motivate someone. How can I give a team member more of what they love doing and less of what they don't like doing? Creating a safe space. All of that is what I would classify under supporting someone. And we could say that is yin. Yin is the feminine supportive element. And that's all well and good. But there is always a but, isn't there? Support cannot stand on its own. We absolutely have to do it, and I think there is not enough of it in the workplace, in many industries. But if we only support without challenge, then we can create complacency where our team, where there are no boundaries. I get all the support I want, I can go on all the courses I want, and I can come in when I want, and, it's all lovely, but no one really demands anything from me. So in this matrix, I have yin, the support, on one axis, the horizontal axis. And on the vertical axis, I have the exact opposite, which is yang, which is challenge. So as a leader, as a project leader, we also need to challenge people. Setting people challenging goals, delegating tasks that are challenging for someone else is a great way to motivate them. So we need both aspects. But we all know what happens if someone is only challenging. They're high in yang, they're high in challenge, and they're low in support. That creates stress. We probably all work for a boss who demanded lots. I want you to do this, I want you to do it by tomorrow, and just working faster or whatever it is. But they don't give us the support to enable us to fulfill those goals. And that creates stress. So I include that matrix in the book to make people reflect on whether they are more supportive or whether they're more challenging. Are they more yin or are they more yang? We need both. Some leaders, or non-leaders rather, they don't do either of these. They're not supportive because, no, that's like the fluffy bit. That's like listening to people and asking them how they're doing. No, I'm not comfortable with that. And challenge, no, I'm not comfortable being challenging either because that's like too masculine and that's too demanding. No. So unfortunately, there are some leaders out there or wannabe leaders who are not doing either of these, and they end up creating detachment from their teams. They're not there at all. They're not showing up. So what I would like project leaders to do and people listening in here is to consider, am I supporting people as much as I'm challenging them? Because when the two go together, when we do both together, that's when it creates high performance. We do need to support people, but we also need to give them a challenge so that they grow. When we challenge people, they grow. So I hope that kind of explained the matrix.
Yes, it did. All right, so those were the 3 keys that we wanted to look at. And just as a reminder, there are 7 in the book. They are: be authentic, lead with vision, improve and innovate. And we just heard about empowering the team. Then we also need to get close to our stakeholders. We have to establish a solid foundation, and we have to work with intent. In closing, Susanne, do you have any concluding tips for our listeners who would like to become a leader of projects as opposed to, just a manager?
Yes, I would like people to consider whether they are predominantly task-focused or whether they could become more people-focused. I'm saying that because most people in project management, or a lot of people, come from a technical background where the task aspect is so predominant. And I really encourage people to go out and develop their emotional intelligence, where they feel empathy with team members. They're also able to express how they feel in the whole thing. They're able to self-manage their emotions. The emotional side of project management is huge. It's what enables us to build great relationships. So that's something I would really like the listener to contemplate. And also, am I asking enough questions? Am I predominantly telling people what to do? Or am I really creating space for others? Am I listening? It's not enough to just ask questions. We also need to listen. So I really like to leave people with those thoughts. Be a role model. Ask questions, listen, empower the team, create space, and of course, consider what creates value in the long term for your client, because that's what it's all about.
Wonderful. As a reminder for everybody, the book is called The Power of Project Leadership. It is written by Susanne Madsen, and it is all just a bit over 250 pages long. And of course, you can learn more about the book by going to powerofprojectleadership.com. Susanne, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
And that was our interview with Susanne Madsen on her new book, The Power of Project Leadership. And as promised, we are giving away 2 copies of her book to you, our listeners. If you have a paid subscription to our premium podcast, then you don't have to do anything. You are automatically entered into our giveaway for one of these 2 books. And everyone else has a chance to win the second book by going to facebook.com/PM podcast. Look for the book giveaway announcement and simply follow the instructions. We closed the Facebook giveaway about 3 weeks after we first published the interview that you have just heard. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening. As always, you can find us on the web at pm-podcast.com. Please send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com, and when you write, please do tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this. Left to themselves, projects tend to go from bad to worse. Until next time.